everybody, my name is Chase here, and there's only a couple of things that I'm certain about in this life we live. There are mice somewhere in this apartment, I get constant noise complaints, and this game fucking sucks!
Metroid, the series that can't stop being abused by its father, but more often known as Nintendo's sci-fi space fantasy series. Metroid always seemed like the odd one out of Nintendo's franchises. They usually like to make games that are bright and happy, and fill you with a sense of adventure and joy. Even a game like Donkey Kong Country that focuses more on immersion and atmosphere was still a platformer about a giant gorilla with a red tie. But Metroid was about isolation and paranoia, the fear of the unknown, heavily inspired by Ridley Scott's Alien. For the longest time, I've been an incredibly casual Metroid fan. I like the series a lot, and I'm always happy to see new games get announced, especially considering how long you have to fucking wait for them. But similar to my track record with Final Fantasy, I've only ever beaten 2 of them, both of which I think are absolutely incredible, but my Metroid experience doesn't go much further than that. So I think it's about time I finally change that and expand my horizons, and well, we have to read the first page first now, don't we? In the distant future of 20XD5, a new species of organisms have been discovered by the Galactic Federation on the planet of SR-388, later to be named a Metroid.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Unfortunately, the Federation wouldn't have the life form for very long as their transport vessel was raided by space pirates where the Metroid was stolen, taken back to their homeworld, the planet Zebes. Oh, I'm sorry, Zebeth. God, I love NES translations. Seeing no other option in their current situation, the Federation decides to hire a bounty hunter by the name of Samus Aran to retrieve the Metroid and lay waste to the leader of the space pirates in the heart of the planet known as Mother Brain, before she has the opportunity to clone more Metroids to be used as weapons of mass destruction. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to talk too much about the whole Samus being a woman twist, because while it was very progressive and ahead of its time for video games, we all know it at this point, so I won't be redundant. But I do think it's funny that a woman being a protagonist of a video game was so foreign and crazy that it was this big twist, to the point where the manual goes so far out of its way to misgender her just to keep the surprise hidden for when the power suit comes off at the end of the game. Like, damn, we really have come a long way since 1986. I also think it's funny that the space pirates are supposed to be this big part of the story just to never actually show up in any part of the game. You're almost exclusively fighting the natural inhabitants of this place. Some pretty territorial inhabitants at that. Metroid is an incredibly non-linear game. You're not told where to go or how to progress. Your goal is to explore planet Zebes and kill 2 bosses and make your way down to Torian to destroy Mother Brain. Something I'll give you is that this game was incredibly innovative for its time. It's taking the platforming and side-scrolling from Super Mario Bros. And exploration and non-linearity from The Legend of Zelda and kind of meeting them in the middle. It was very new and innovative for 1986, and the foundation is most certainly here and accounted for. You explore the area to find upgrades that help you explore even more of the planet and find even more upgrades. That's classic Metroid if I've ever seen it. And most of the classic items are here too. The Morph Ball lets you curl up into small spaces because the designers didn't know how to make Metroid crawl. Morph Ball bombs let you place explosives on the ground and reveal hidden entryways. The Varia suit, which is pink in this game for some reason. The high jump boots make you jump higher, and the screw attack turns your flippy jump into a flippy jump of death. All these upgrades are fun to use and satisfying to find. There's a steady progression of power, which of course is very important in a game like this. But being one of, if not the first Metroidvania ever made, there's a lot of quirks here. You don't get a map in Metroid, not even a little gray box to let you know where you are. If you want to remember where you are, you better pull out that pen and paper and start drawing these locations, or do what everybody on the face of the planet does and just look up a map online. You know what? Put away that pen and paper, because it's not going to help you. The manual does give you a map, but I don't really know what you're supposed to glean from this. Now, needing to use a guide isn't that big of a deal. This was an 80s adventure game, and I do love the original Legend of Zelda, but I wouldn't exactly call Zebes a very intuitively designed place. The game is very guilty of copying and pasting rooms to pad out the map, sometimes right after the other, and there are almost no landmarks or distinct areas to give you an idea of where you are. They also require you to bomb extremely precise tiles just to progress. Getting lost isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. I played this game twice for this video. Once on the NES and one on the Famicom version, and even on my second run, which I did a day later, I could not for the life of me figure out where I was supposed to go. I was looking at my phone so much you would think there was a drug dealer outside. everything just kind of blends together to the point where I don't know how anybody who didn't own Nintendo Power actually managed to beat this game. And while upgrades are fun and satisfying to find like always, things like missile packs are just laying out in the open. This room has 3 of them just sitting right next to each other. So the world is insanely confusing and hard to navigate while secrets are right out in the open. I think the design department got a few notes backward. The game can also get really fucking difficult. Samus might be one of the strongest bounty hunters in the galaxy, but her movement capabilities are very limited. The only direction she can shoot her gun arm are in front of her and straight up. There's no option to shoot down or diagonally. You can't even crouch to shoot lower, which has got to be a major oversight because almost every enemy in this game is too short to hit with your regular weapon. You do get morph ball bombs, which help with taking out guys on the ground, but why can't I just shoot a little lower? You're telling me that Samus can contort her entire body into a spherical ball and roll around but can't do this? And even when you do get a handle on the controls, enemies still do absurd amounts of damage. They hit like fucking semi-trucks, especially early on when you don't have any way to combat them. Your default beam doesn't even travel across the entire screen when you start. The game gets easier as you get more upgrades and in turn more fun. Once I got the screw attack, things started quickly turning in my favor. I fucking love this thing. It shreds through every enemy like tinfoil, and because of that, it's my go-to method of taking care of threats. You do also get some beam upgrades, those being the ice beam, letting you freeze enemies for a moment to use them as platforms, or freezing them and ignoring them like I do, and the wave beam, which moves through walls and has a bit more power, and get this, can actually take care of grounded enemies! The idea of these two having their pros and cons so players can choose what they want is fun. You know, if you're not going to make them stack like in Super Metroid. Problem is that you can only hang on to one of them at a time, and if you want to switch, you have to travel all the way back to where you got them in the first place. And not only that, but the ice beam is required to finish the game, as it's the only way to kill Metroids in the final area. If you brought the wave beam down here, you are screwed because it does nothing against these bastards, while the ice beam freezes them, allowing you to kill them with 5 missiles. But if you want to talk about bad design, let's talk about the fucking health system. Just like in future games, you start with 99 units of health and expand it by collecting energy tanks. But when you die, and you will die, you're booted back to the beginning of the area you died in with only 30 units of health, no matter how many tanks you have. The original Metroid doesn't have recharge stations like the later entries. The only way to refill your health is either collect a new energy tank, which is very limited considering that these are upgrades, or spend an assload of time farming health drops from enemies. This is for every time you die, and it sucks. You can be here for up to 20 minutes trying to refill your tanks just to die from an enemy sniping you through the door and having to do it all over again. It makes progression so awkward. I turned into a paranoid mess simply trying to make it through these rooms because I don't want to have to go through that grind again. Some might say that gives the game a sense of tension. We are on a hostile alien planet, so it should feel that way, but the punishment is way too severe to make it work. And also because getting hit by an enemy is rarely the player's fault. Enemies can hit you during room transitions or when you simply enter a room. Like, come on, guys, give me a fucking break here. Do you want me to have a good time or not? And this is a little off topic, but I think the game is kind of ugly too. This was an early NES game, but Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda have definitely aged better graphically. I do like some of the art direction, and the environments do a good job of making this place feel alien and organic, but when it comes to some of these enemies half the time, I can't tell exactly what I'm supposed to be looking at. I understand these are alien life forms, but what the hell is that? That looks like a green stapler. I think Samus got the worst of it. Her head is huge and her whole body is really weirdly animated. She walks like a chicken. The lanky legs don't help with it either. This is overall a weird sprite. And the frame rate chugs when there's more than a couple things on screen at once, and it kills the game's pace. In fact, Metroid's got some pretty janky programming all around. There were so many times where I found myself stuck in lava and was unable to jump out even when there was clearly enough space for me to do it. Sometimes enemies just fail to load, which can screw you in Kraid's hideout. Sometimes if you fall fast enough, some of the tiles fail to load their correct colors, and zoomers do that when they don't have a block to stand on. You know what? That one's funny. The only thing really left to talk about are the bosses, and they really aren't anything special. Ridley barely puts up a fight, especially when you have the wave beam. He can't even fucking move. Kraid is slightly more challenging because of all the shit he throws at you and the fact that he doesn't just sit in one place, but you can just cheese him with morph ball bombs. The only challenging boss on display is Mother Brain herself. She doesn't even do anything other than sit in her tank like a depressed goldfish. Instead, she relies on these fucking turrets and orange rings, which are annoying as fuck. They constantly throw you around like bumper balls while you waste missiles trying to blast these doors open that regenerate if you take too long. And when you respawn back at the beginning of Torian with 30 health, it just makes screaming into my pillow more natural. All in all, Metroid is a game that I feel has aged as well as the 3-year-old bag of shredded cheese in the back of my fridge. Look, it's not all bad. If there's anything I can say I like, it's the music. There's only a handful of tracks and they loop pretty fast, but they do a good job of setting the tone for your adventure. I love the theme of Kraid's Lair. Brinstar's theme is just catchy. Ridley's hideout is kind of ear-grating, but the title and ending themes make up for it and then some. And while future games certainly do it better, the foundation of the series is still here and the appeal is still intact, but unfortunately there's a lot in the way of that appeal. There's just too many dated design elements that add up to something that even with proper outside materials is not a very fun experience to come back to. It's something I can really only recommend to hardcore Metroid fans that are curious about the franchise's humble beginnings. I didn't hate my time with it, but it's gonna be a while before I decide to pick it back up. But luckily, I don't have to. In 2004, after the release of Metroid Fusion, a full from the ground up remake was released for the Game Boy Advance entitled Metroid Zero Mission. And this remake absolutely shits all over the NES version to the point of nearly replacing it. Goddamn, where do I even start? What used to be blandly copy and pasted rooms are now reimagined with new puzzles and secrets that reward your curiosity. Progression has been majorly improved by reworking the game's structure, which makes it harder for the player to get lost without needing to hold their hand every step of the way. Beams now stack, along with upgrades from Super Metroid being added like super missiles and the speed booster. Save points have been implemented that don't start you with 30 health when you die, thank fucking god. The bosses have been reworked to be more fun to fight, along with brand new bosses. And in the most shocking aspect, there's an entirely new section of the game after you fight Mother Brain where space pirates shoot down Samus's ship and you have to weave your way through their ship without the power suit. These sections always make my fingers twitch because the space pirates can rip you a new asshole if they spot you. When those alarms blare and you got 5 pirates coming after you, it's like, oh fuck! But it just makes it so satisfying to finally get all your equipment back and tear through these guys. My favorite detail is when you first come through here, you have to hide in this room, but when you come back, they are hiding from you. Metroid Zero Mission is what you call a fucking remake. I don't really see any reason to go back to the NES game at this point. It takes everything that worked about the original, gets rid of all the stuff that sucked, and adds in new mechanics that make the experience more fun. It even expands the lore of the series by showing a bit of Samus's backstory. I understand that some people might see it as a little too on rails at point, and it is a bit on the short and easy side. You can beat it in little over an hour, and I didn't die a single time through this run through. But I think it just makes for a great starting point for newcomers to get into the series. If you want to get into Metroid, start here. And even if you're a veteran, the developers left in these ways a sequence break, like being able to fight Ridley first like you could in the original. Metroid Zero Mission is not only the best games in the series, but it's one of the greatest remakes of all time. But if you want something a bit more in line with the original, I can suggest Metroid Mother. This is a ROM hack of the NES game that aims to implement some quality of life improvements like giving you a map on the pause screen, making beams stack so you're not locked out of the end game if you got the wave beam, a full save system, and a lot of graphical improvements. A decent amount of the original game's annoying bits are still here, however. You still start with 30 health upon death, you can't aim in 8 directions, and there's a lot of slowdown. In fact, I think it might actually be worse because of all the new sprites. This isn't a bad version at all. I think the inclusion of the map makes this version better by default. If you already liked the original and thought Zero Mission strayed a little too far away from what you liked about it, then definitely give it a shot. It's a much smoother experience.
But all of this really just comes down to something I've had on my mind for a while. Outros are weird.